So the first question is Christmas a pagan holiday? The answer to this question is very simply no. Christmas was never a pagan holiday. Now, the church started celebrating the birth of Christ on December 25th, sometime between the middle of the 3rd and the early part of the 4th century. This coincides with the time period when Constantine became a Christian and the persecution of the church in the Roman Empire came to an end. Now, you might say, well, maybe Christmas itself wasn't a pagan holiday, but it was started to replace pagan holidays, right? Well, a lot of people assume this, but there's actually no evidence for it in any of the surviving writings of the early church. Yeah, it's true that there were several pagan Roman holidays that happened in midwinter, like Saturnalia and Sol Invictus, the birth of Mithras and Calends, but you have to keep in mind that December 25th, according to the Julian calendar, which is what the Romans were using at that time, was the time of the December solstice, which is the shortest day of the year in the northern hemisphere. And this is one of the most significant cyclical astronomical events of the year. Plus, December is the dead of winter in the northern hemisphere. So that means it's a time that's characterized by short, cold, dark days. So it's not exactly a mystery why people would choose this time of year to hold many different kinds of celebrations, feasts, parties, all that kind of stuff was happening all over the world, not only in the Roman Empire, but actually probably throughout every culture and every society on the planet, at least the ones that paid any attention to astronomy. Well, you might ask, if Christmas isn't intended to replace a pagan holiday, then why do we celebrate it on December 25th instead of the day that Jesus was actually born? Well, first of all, I did not say that Christmas was not intended to replace a pagan holiday. It's possible that this was at least one of the reasons for it. What I said is there's no actual evidence for that claim in any of the surviving writings of the early church. And it's true that there were pagan holidays celebrating during this time of year. So it's absolutely possible that at least one of the reasons for celebrating Christmas on December 25th was to replace one or more of the pagan holidays. However, we don't know that for sure, so anybody who claims to know this is just wrong. It's not a fact, it's at best an assumption. But what other reasons could there possibly be to celebrate the birth of Jesus on December 25th if it's not pagan holidays? Well, it's important to point out that we actually don't know for sure when Jesus was born. The Bible doesn't tell us. In any case, I would argue it's probably true that it's unlikely that Jesus was born in December, and I've heard some good theories about this and good theories of when Jesus might have really been born, but I'm not going to get into that because they really don't matter to this discussion. The discussion we're having is, why did the church decide to celebrate Christmas on December 25th? And we actually have some very good, well-documented reasons for this that have absolutely nothing to do with paganism. For example, for a while it had been theorized that Jesus was actually born on March 25th. Why? Because this was accepted as the date of creation. And the people thought of it like this. Well, it made sense that Jesus, who is the light of the world, came into the world on the same day that God said, "Let there be light." But then there was this guy, Sextus Julius Africanus. He said, wait a minute. Technically, Jesus didn't come into the world when he was born. He came into the world when he was conceived. That's a good pro-life argument, isn't it? So actually, that means that he wasn't born until 9 months later. And what's 9 months from March 25th? December 25th. And remember that December 25th on the Julian calendar was the time of the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, which was sometimes celebrated in the ancient world as the day of the unconquered sun. Why? Well, because the days have been getting shorter and shorter and darker since June. And for 6 months, the sun had been getting lower and lower on the horizon. But then winter solstice is the day that changes again. The sun begins to rise again on the horizon. And Jesus being born on that day of the unconquered rising sun, that probably seemed like a fitting and appropriate time. And maybe they even thought of it as a confirmation that this was indeed the day. Okay, so Christmas is not a pagan holiday. It may or may not have been intended to replace pagan holidays. We just don't know for sure. And there are many other good reasons that the church might have chosen December 25th as the day of Christ's birth that have nothing to do with paganism. And these non-pagan reasons are the actual reasons, the only actual reasons that we have any evidence for in the writings of the early church.